Have you ever wondered how someone with half the skills and half the potential is way more successful than you? They are not more qualified or talented. They are not even working harder than you. Yet somehow they are building businesses, traveling the world, living their best lives, maybe even creating legacy in Africa while you are still stuck in the same cycle in the West. You know, the biggest lie we've been told is that success is all about hustle, that unless you work 100 hours per week, sacrifice everything, stay disciplined, you don't deserve the dream. And that's why so many of us grind ourselves into the ground, thinking that suffering is some kind of proof we deserve success. But if that's true, then how come that some of the hardest working people on the planet, like for instance, our farmers or daily laborers on the African continent, are suffering and living in generational poverty? Yes, hard work matters. Yeah, I'm not going to deny that. But that's not the whole story, because if you look closely at most successful people, then you will notice there's always something else at play. Like, for example, wealth, timing, status, or other so-called unfair advantages. Sadly, many people believe that unfair advantages are just for wealthy or white people. But what if we find out that every single one of us, yes, even those of us who've experienced racism, rejection, or poverty in the West, has unfair advantages too? In today's video, I want to share with you why we must use our unfair advantages strategically and without apology if we want to break free from survival mode in the West and create the life that we not just dream of, but that we deserve. That's exactly what I did and what helped me leave Germany behind and create the life that I dream of on the African continent. And I know some of you are already sitting there with your self-righteous opinions ready to go. How shameless of her to take advantage of her privileges. I would never. Or she doesn't deserve success if she didn't earn it the hard way. That would be unfair. Well, I got some bad news for you. Life is fundamentally unfair. And the sooner you realize and understand this, the better for you. Also, I want to be crystal clear and make sure I'm grabbing the right audience right now. This video is for those of you who understand that life is an unfair game, for those who are ready to learn how to use every unfair advantage they've been given to play and win the damn game. I want to start by sharing a very personal story with you. I remember I was maybe in the second grade or even first grade. I was sitting in my classroom, the only African child, the only black child, when my teacher asked us, "What do your parents do for a living?" And the first child she pointed to responded with something like nurse, second accountant, lawyer, what have you. I remember the feeling that I felt. I was so scared for my turn, because that would have been the moment where I have to either lie and come up with something that would make me proud, or reveal that my mom was just a cleaner. I remember I felt so ashamed about this, and it would get worse the older I got. It became my most feared question, during my school days. And later in secondary school, lying wasn't even an option anymore, because my mom was working as a cleaner for one of my classmates' mom. So he knew my mom and what she was doing for a living. Bottom line is that back then I felt like I am disadvantaged in every way possible because of the color of my skin. And because of that, I was discriminated, excluded during games with other school children. I experienced racist remarks and discrimination even from teachers, and I felt disadvantaged because of our economic status. My mom was a single mom working to sustain our life as a cleaner. We couldn't afford the newest sneakers, I was often wearing clothes that my brothers grown out of, and they were passed over to us. I couldn't be a child the way I wanted to be. For instance, on weekends when we were too little to be left at home, my mom would take us with her to work, and we even helped her working and cleaning the places that she worked in. The only time I enjoyed that was when she was cleaning for a kindergarten, which was really like an elite kindergarten. They had all the toys that I dreamed of. And while playing around, I was also cleaning. Anyways, I had to take on a lot of responsibilities from a very early age, started working at the age of 12, you know. And on top of that, the moment I was able to read and write, I was responsible for reading all the letters from authorities, government, tax institutions, or what have you, to read and translate them for my mom, because my mom couldn't speak German fluently. Her reading skills were also very bad. So even though I couldn't comprehend what these people want from me, it was my job to read and translate them for her. And so, yes, as I said, I felt disadvantaged in every way possible, racially, economically, socially, you know, being raised by a single mother. And the crazy thing is, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that the very circumstances and disadvantages that I grew up with would one day become my unfair advantages, my superpower, and that using them strategically in combination with my unfair advantages would help me one day escape a system that was never meant for me to thrive and build the life that I always dreamed of in Africa. But back then, when I was a kid, and I think it was until my early teenage years, whenever I noticed an unfair advantage behind a person's success, my first instinct wasn't admiration, it was frustration. I would look at people winning and think, life is so unfair. I didn't have the perfect upbringing. I didn't have this. I didn't have that. So achieving success is way harder for me. If I had what she has, I would be winning too. And I know I'm not alone. Many of us who felt disadvantaged, whether because of race, class, background, or opportunity, have been there. It's a kind of reverse excuse, you know, a way of explaining why they're ahead and you're not. And I get it. It can feel comforting, even justifying. But here are the two big problems with this kind of mindset. The first problem is that your excuses might be 100% valid. Life's been unfair. You've had it hard. And the other's winning. Oh, it's just because she's lucky. He has rich parents. She's white. That's why. She has connections. Okay. And how does explaining why someone else is winning and you're not actually going to help you? That's the question you should ask yourself. Let's be real. What most people who love to reverse excuse someone else's success are looking for, and I'm talking specifically about grown-ass people who love to reverse excuse and who don't have their shit together. What these people are really looking for is permission to keep losing with dignity. You want people to still clap for you, to respect you, even if you've got nothing to show, because life's been so hard, right? And maybe your mom will tell you you're so special, you know? Maybe your friends will say you deserve more. They will say you've had it tough. It's not your fault. You did your best. But remember, no matter how much love and pity you get from others, it will never replace the respect you lose with yourself. Because deep down, you know you could have done better. You know you're capable of more. The second problem with this kind of mindset is that when you focus too much on what others have that you don't, you miss out on recognizing the unique unfair advantages you might already be sitting on. Because believe it or not, we all have them. Even if we faced racism, rejection, or poverty in the West, probably you're using them already without even knowing. You just might not see it yet, because when you've spent your whole life being told that you're at a disadvantage, it's not always easy to spot what you've got going for you. Another reason why this mindset is so problematic and even dangerous is that you risk becoming blind to how you can actually turn your disadvantages into your advantages. And so here's your choice. Use what you've got, or sit back, hold on to your lame excuses and wait for life to feel sorry for you. But just know that's not how you win, okay? For myself, I chose to use what I got and turn my disadvantages into my advantage to win in this unfair game called life. But this choice didn't come out of nowhere, and it wasn't an easy journey. There was actually one particular moment that changed my life, a particular situation that shifted my entire mindset and also my behavior from being the person that was crying over how unfair life is and that was judging others for using their unfair advantages to succeed, to becoming that person who understands that it would be stupid to not use your unfair advantages. I remember I was 15 and my mom was having trouble with a social worker from the social welfare program. For some reason, that social worker felt entitled to cut funding, to terrorize us, and she called us to the office, and I decided to join my mom because I saw how insecure she felt. And she shared with me how she was being mistreated by these people for not speaking fluent German, And so I decided, okay, I'm going to join you and I will speak for you, translate everything for you. And so we were sitting in that office, and I remember I was so mad seeing how this woman spoke to my mom in such a condescending tone, the way she humiliated her, as if my mom is not worthy of any respect or dignity, the sense of entitlement. This woman was acting as if we are begging her to give us her personal hard-earned money and not the money that we are entitled to according to the social welfare program. She just loved the role that she was in, have so much power over us. And I will never forget that moment, and I will never forget that feeling. When we walked out of this office, my mom, she looked me in the eyes, and I will never forget what she told me. She said, Wayne, if you don't want to end up like me, if you want people to respect you, to value you, you better study hard and work harder. And I made myself a promise that day. I promised to myself that I will do everything in my power to never, ever depend on these people. I swear to myself that I will never allow them to humiliate me ever again, me or my family. I promised myself that I will excel in school, I will work so hard, and I will study the social welfare system inside out, understand how it works, find out what possible fundings, scholarships exists out there for people like me. And I swear to myself, I will apply for every single funding and scholarship out there that I am entitled to and use it. Not just to survive, but to succeed faster and smarter. So if there was anything out there that could help me move forward quicker or with less struggle, I was taking it, period. And I also remember I talked to one of my friends who worked at an NGO, and she told me that there is so much funding available, and she complained that they are not even receiving enough applications, that people don't even take the effort no more to write an application and to submit it because they believe that their application won't be approved anyway. And so by the end of the fiscal year, her NGO has to pay back the millions of euros back to the German government because of not enough people applying for them. Can you imagine? Anyway, that's when I began for the first time to turn my disadvantages into my advantages strategically. So if you're eligible for any sort of funding, be it a scholarship because you want to go to university or any kind of educational program, or a funding maybe for a small business, right, or a startup, for the love of God, put in the effort and apply. But here's what you need to prepare yourself for. When you start using your unfair advantage, be ready for people around you to start judging you, pointing their fingers at you from their imaginary moral high ground. And I remember also here one situation so vividly. I was studying cultural anthropology and African studies at that time. I was a student working 3 or 4 jobs, and together with the scholarships that I received, I was able to do field research in one of the most breathtaking, amazing, beautiful places on this beautiful planet. I was regularly traveling and doing field research in the Caribbean, in South America. And one day, I remember I just came back from a very inspiring and beautiful journey in South America. I was working a shift, still glowing from that experience, sun-kissed, skin glowing, focused, when one of my old friends walked into the cafe, came straight towards me, and with a very condescending smile said, "Oh, Wayne, it must be nice to be a student, right? Traveling the world on government money, all funded by our hard-earned tax euros." And I get it. I wasn't even mad at her because she was close to a burnout. She was working so hard. And the worst part, she wasn't even able to enjoy the fruits of her labor, because when she was working like 50, 60 hours per week, I really felt sorry for her. And when people like her see others enjoying their best lives, despite not working nearly as hard as them, it's frustrating. I get it. And because I genuinely care for her, I didn't feel the need to argue with her or to defend myself. And instead, I looked at her and told her, listen, I chose to play my cards right, and so can you. If you're not happy with the path that you chose, you can still quit your job and go back to school. It's never too late to go back to school. I mean, after all, we were in our early 20s. And so I advised her and tried to empower her by sharing informations on how to get scholarships and where to get some funding, how to apply, where to apply. And eventually, a couple of years later, she indeed quit her job, also because of a burnout that she experienced. And so after she recovered from that burnout, she went back to school. And that's when she realized, oh, that's way more harder than it looks. And that's the big problem also. People only see the bright side. From the outside, it always looks easier, right? People see you enjoying life, but they don't see the hard work behind. You see, having unfair advantages alone doesn't mean you can just skip the work. Success, however we define it, is a mix. It's about combining both unfair advantages and fair advantages. Let me clarify what I mean by that. By unfair advantages, I mean things that you didn't choose, that you yourself didn't earn. Maybe you were born with them. Maybe you are 7 feet tall, right? And have an unfair advantage if you decide to play basketball, okay? Or let's say you are born into a wealthy family. And so having a wealthy family can be an unfair advantage. Fair advantages, on the other hand, are things that you did earn yourself. This can be things like discipline, resilience, consistency. They take effort and time to build. That's why they are fair. They are tools and habits that any one of us can develop, and they are crucial for your success. Now, how do we define success? To me personally, success is not just about money, status, or making it. I've seen people chasing dreams and money and end up compromising everything that matters along the way. Or they stay stuck in jobs where they can't grow or fulfill their potential. That's not the life that I want. Success to me means building a life where I can achieve my goals and live out my values, not one on the expense of the other. And for me, that life is in Africa. Working in service of Africa and Africans gives me a sense of purpose no corporate title or paycheck in the West ever could. So even if I'm not where I want to be yet, financially, I wake up every day knowing I'm doing work that matters. I'm working on my own dream. I'm building something real, something rooted, something bigger than myself and aligned with my values. That's what real success looks like to me. A life that feels right. Now, let me share some unfair advantages that undoubtedly helped me on this journey back to the motherland and offer up some you probably have working in your favor as well. Let's start with the first one. Location, passport, and citizenship. Passport privilege is an unfair advantage that many people on this planet do not enjoy, and that is mostly reserved for citizens and people born in strong Western countries. I use my passport power to travel the world, build connections, and learn. It had a bigger impact on my personal growth than any classroom I was ever sitting in. Especially my first trip to Zanzibar in 2008, when I traveled to the island as a student. That trip laid the foundation for my business in Zanzibar today. All these trips that I made, they are also so powerful because they taught me to always try to step out of my comfort zone. In fact, they made it easier for me to step out of my comfort zone. Passport privilege is real, and it's so important to appreciate this and not take it for granted. And it would also be stupid to not use it. Still, like with any other unfair advantage, there will always be people who will try to make you feel guilty about it. I always enjoy when people on the internet try to humble me over my passport privilege and really think they're making a point when they comment, "Oh, she's only able to travel because of her passport." Like, yeah, genius. That's literally what a passport is for. I still need to work and pay for my flights. Many don't make use of this advantage. My passport is one of the very few things I didn't have to fight for, and you're mad I'm using it? What do you want me to do? What do you expect? Give it back to the embassy out of guilt so that strangers in the internet can feel better about their life choices? Do you expect me to think, "Oh no, I have this strong passport I didn't work for. I shouldn't travel. That would be unfair to the others"? Come on, man. Let's be serious. You sound ridiculous. If you had what I have, you would be crossing borders too. Now, let's forget about the passport, okay? My German citizenship. Like, if you enjoy citizenship in a Western country that is safe, that you can always go back to when things don't work out the way you planned, that's an unfair advantage. And that's also what helped me and gave me the confidence to go to Ethiopia and try to build a new life there. Because I know that my worst case scenario isn't that bad at all. Like, if I fail in Ethiopia, I just go back to Germany and do what most of my friends were doing at that time and do what I was doing before. Work in a 9 to 5, because as a German citizen, if things don't work out for me in Kenya or Ethiopia or anywhere else in the world, I can go back to Germany. I have a social system that helps me to get back on track. I have so many job opportunities, even if I have to start over and work as a waiter. Believe it or not, your worst case scenario is someone else's best case scenario. And so having this German citizenship, this German passport, right, is an unfair advantage in terms of it gives you more confidence to move abroad and try to build a new life there, because your worst case scenario isn't that bad after all if you really think about it. But what was also a very beautiful unfair advantage was that my mom is from Ethiopia. So I was able, through my ancestry, because of my mom, to apply for residency in Ethiopia. And so this is how I got my Ethiopian ID, and it's not a dual citizenship, but the Ethiopian Diaspora ID gave me so many rights, like for instance, visa-free entry, residency, I don't need to apply or pay for a visa. I have a work permit. I can start a business there. And so this is an unfair advantage that many people have, but they don't make use of it. And this is something that I always try to advise people on. If your parents are still alive and you were born and raised in the West and maybe only hold the citizenship of the country you currently reside in, for the love of God, get your African ID, whether you're from Rwanda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Nigeria. Our parents won't live forever, and we need our parents to get the application through. They are our witnesses. The process is not easy all the time. They will ask for birth certificates, for your parents to sign documents. So what are you waiting for? Stop procrastinating, and especially in the crazy times we are living in right now, Having a residency in an African country, that's an amazing plan B if shit hits the fan, if you ask me. I mean, look at how the US is tripping, starting wars left, right, and center. So, and also Europe. When America is going down, they will take Europe down with them. That's for sure. So have a plan B. Use your time now. Take advantage of that unfair advantage and get yourself the residency in your parents' country. This is one of the biggest advices that I can give anyone out there. Even if you're African American or Caribbean, right? There are some countries, especially in Western and Southern Africa, that give you the right to apply for residency. And all you need to have is a DNA test where you can prove that you have a certain level percentage, I don't know how that works, of ancestry in that region. And so what are you waiting for? Another unfair advantage that I enjoyed and that helped me eventually escape survival mode in the West was free education. And not just free education, but good education. And I already mentioned earlier how I was so motivated to excel in school. I always was a very ambitious and good student and celebrated many wins. But I realized very early a painful truth. Most people don't actually want you to win. And it hits different when it's your family and friends. I remember when I got my final high school results, I was running home, full speed, graduation paper in my hand, and already imagining my mom's proud smile. You know, it was a big deal because I was the first in my family to make it this far. The first one with a real shot at university. My mom was in the kitchen, you know, cooking food like she always did in the afternoon. And so I ran towards her, hugged her so tight and told her, I passed, I got in. She was so proud of me. But later, when I was sitting in my bedroom, my older brother walked up to me. He looked down on me. He didn't smile. He didn't congratulate me. He just looked down at me and said, "Who do you think you are? Don't forget, you're just lucky. You had it easy. You were born here. You didn't have to struggle like we did. So humble yourself." And that moment stuck with me, not because he was completely wrong, but because it felt like everything I fought for was being dismissed in one sentence. Like none of the effort, the pressure, the expectations, the isolation, the racism I experienced mattered. That's when I first learned, when you start winning, regardless of how small or big the win is, people will always find a reason to downplay your wins. They will look for ways to explain why your success doesn't really count. They will throw out every excuse under the sun to discredit you, a way to make sure you don't get the respect that should come with the win. Why? Because it's easier for them to believe you had it easier than to admit you worked for it. Because if they admitted you earned it, they would have to look at themselves, and they are not ready for that. And I get it. Free education, access to good education, and access to scholarships and fundings are privileges not everyone enjoys. And I also acknowledge that it opened many doors for me, but only because I put in the work. You know what's beautiful? Even if you don't have access to free education, we are living in a time where, thanks to platforms like YouTube, everyone can educate him or herself for free. There is nothing that you cannot learn on YouTube. It's YouTube where I first learned about passive income, where I learned so many new skills and ways to generate extra income through side hustles. You can literally learn anything on YouTube for free, but only if you're willing and determined. You need to put in the work. Let's get to the next unfair advantage, wealth. When people think of advantages, the first thing that actually comes to mind is usually wealth. And while money is a major advantage, like any other unfair advantage, it can be a double-edged sword. Like for instance, I know people who were born into wealthy families, but can you imagine they're wasting their life smoking weed from morning to evening? They don't have the drive. They don't have the ambitions to create something, to build a legacy. Maybe it's because they're too comfortable. I don't know. But yes, that's what I mean when I say wealth can be a double-edged sword. And on the flip side, people who were not born into wealthy families like me, they have this fire in them, this willingness to work hard, to create. And we do this with creativity because lack of resources makes you creative. And that's a perfect example of how your disadvantage turns into your advantage. And so remember, having wealthy parents is no guarantee for success. At the same time, being broke can be your unfair advantage. I said it before and I say it again. If you have nothing to lose, you not only become incredibly creative, you also become incredibly dangerous because there is no limit on shots you're gonna take, You can try it over and over again. If you have nothing to lose, your worst case scenario is baseline. In my case, while working as a waiter, I took every possible shift. I worked before seminars, after seminars. I worked Saturdays, Sundays. I had no single days off because I was tired of being broke. And also, I never spent money unnecessarily on things like cars, nice furniture, or fancy clothes. Instead, I used that little money that I made and that I saved to invest in myself. And it's interesting because many people assume that it was wealth that brought me back to Africa, that allowed me the life that I'm living right now. They tell me that they don't have the financial means to just move to Africa. And I'm not here to dismiss what you've been through or what you're currently going through. But it's also true that everyone had their own challenges. You might not have started with the most opportunities, but what matters is how you play the cards that you've got to make money. For example, you can invest your spare time to learn a new skill or start a side hustle. Last but not least, I want to speak about a major disadvantage that many people in my audience can relate to. I'm talking about being Black in Europe or in America and experiencing racial discrimination. Yes, it's a disadvantage. And being white often comes with privileges. In fact, whiteness after wealth is often the first thing that comes to people's mind when they think about unfair advantages. Therefore, many of us who faced racism, rejection, or discrimination in the West fail to realize how we can actually turn these disadvantages into our unfair advantage. But first you need to understand that certain disadvantages in the Western world, such as blackness, do not carry the same weight in every country. So while I experienced racism in Germany, my skin color turned into my unfair advantage when I traveled countries in South America, the Caribbean, or Africa. During my student years, I traveled to South America and the Caribbean frequently, and most of the time with a big group of students and professors. And most of the time, I was the only Black girl. And despite being just a student, I received more respect and more value than my white professor. For example, when in Trinidad, I was invited to stay with the family of the local partner of my professor for free for 6 weeks, while the rest of the group had to pay $60 per night for their accommodation. My professor and the other students quickly noticed that I'm enjoying certain privileges and that I was being treated differently, that I was loved more, respected more, valued more. And guess what their reaction was? This is so unfair just because she's Black. And the way I was bullied by the entire group afterwards was despicable. Same experience in Africa. When you travel there or even move there to start a new life, people will value you. They will welcome you. It will be much easier and faster for you to blend in. They will celebrate you for returning home, for bringing expertise. They will offer their help. So many people will want to work with you, but also many people will try to take advantage of you. So this too can be a double-edged sword. But overall, you will enjoy unfair advantages in Africa that other people, white people, don't. Especially if it's your home country, because so many African countries offer incentives for returning diasporas, incentives if you want to start a business. You will also have more job opportunities because of the unique skill set that you bring. And therefore, you will also enjoy certain unfair advantages over the locals. Like for instance, when I moved to Ethiopia and started working there, my salary was way more higher than that of the locals. And I know it sounds harsh and people will judge again and trying to shame me for taking advantage of my unfair advantages, right? But I believe what counts in the end is how you use your unfair advantages. You have to ask yourself, are you only extracting like a colonizer, or are you genuinely trying to give back, to support and uplift the community? And I moved to Ethiopia with the intention to build, and I used my salary to start a business where I employed local people, where I train local people, where I pay them a salary that is way above the average. I support many of my family members, pay for the school fees of my cousins and their children. And so I believe that's what counts in the end. How do you use your unfair advantage to help and uplift people who are disadvantaged? Now, why am I sharing all of this? I want you to understand that we've all got our own set of unfair advantages. Things that we didn't earn but can absolutely use to move forward. And I hope that you realize that you can turn your disadvantages into your unique advantages. So check your deck, look at what you're holding. And if you've got something that can help you win, for the love of God, use it. Maybe you were blessed with intelligence, and I'm not talking only about the classic IQ, but also emotional intelligence, a very powerful skill. Or maybe you were blessed with creativity or beauty. That's an unfair advantage that you can use to your advantage. And it's not a secret that those who are perceived as more attractive are more likely to be perceived positively, even if they haven't earned it. I once saw a YouTube video with the title, "If you are pretty, get your ass on YouTube." Makes total sense to me, but remember, beauty, attractiveness, and pretty privilege, like every other unfair advantage, can also be a double-edged sword, because there will be people who will reduce you on your looks, who will not take you seriously. And when your channel grows and you start winning, people will point to your appearance to explain why your success doesn't really count. I experience this all the time. Your YouTube channel only grew so fast because you're pretty. If you didn't have pretty privilege, no one would be listening to you. And yeah, I am well aware that being perceived as attractive comes with benefits. You're not exposing anything new. What's funny to me is you act like I'm supposed to be ashamed of it. Like, do you expect me to sit there and think, oh no, I'm pretty, better not start a YouTube channel. That would be unfair. Seriously? If you have an advantage, you would be stupid not to use it. And let's be real, beauty alone doesn't build a channel. It might get attention, yes, but it doesn't build trust, hold an audience, or deliver value. Looks might open the door, yes, but looks alone don't build anything sustainable. If being pretty is all it takes, then go be pretty and let's see how far you get. Bottom line is, feeling guilty won't change anything, because in the end, know that people will judge you when you have nothing, people will judge you when you're working towards something, and people will find something to judge when you have everything. But here's what I've learned. No one, and I repeat, no one judges you harder than someone who has less than you. You will never hear someone ahead of you trying to tear you down. You will never see a YouTuber with 1 million subscribers, or let it just be 100,000 subscribers, making fun of you for starting your first YouTube channel, or a wealthy business person, a successful business person, mocking you for starting your first business, because they've been there. They know how hard it is at the beginning. Plus, they're too focused on their growth and too busy winning. So if you ever face hate, jealousy, or people trying to humble you, congratulations, because that means you're ahead of them. That means you've got something in you that makes them feel uncomfortable. Trust me, the game changes when you stop feeling guilty or apologizing for your advantages and start using them. That's not arrogance, that's strategy. Unfortunately, these days, I feel like everyone wants to tell a started from the bottom, now we here story. Even if their bottom was a 2-parent household, free education, clean water, and stable electricity. So it's time we stop romanticizing the struggle. Struggle is real and sometimes necessary, but it's not a badge of honor. Yes, some people do have to fight harder than others. And yes, life is unfair. But you know what's the beautiful part? We still get to choose how we respond. Remember, our circumstances do not define us. We define them. I love the saying that goes like, you can't go back and rewrite the beginning, but you can take full control of what the ending looks like. So stop apologizing, stop feeling guilty, and stop waiting for permission. Play your goddamn cards and play to win. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found some value in it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I look forward to see you in the next video. Bye!